The year is 2017. You're rushed to a hospital unconscious with no ID or medical history, but thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
And it sounds like it's right from a sci-fi movie, but people all over the world are implanting these into their wrists.
We're so attracted to our devices that they're basically becoming a part of our bodies. But what if they really could become a part of our bodies? Well, guess what? They can. Meet the RFID microchip.
In the quiet town of Mount Vernon, Washington, Emil Grafstra has capabilities unlike anyone around. To access his storage facility, all he has to do is raise his hand. To get into his car, again, put out his hand. Grafstra has 4 radio frequency identification tags in his hand and arm.
Many people thought that I was like working for the government with tracking devices or something. A lot of people were just upset about humans being treated like cattle. Back then it was death threat, death threat. Ooh, that's interesting, death threat, death threat. Now it's more like, ooh, that's kind of cool. What can it do? What can I do with it? And like, how much does it cost?
A doctor inserted Grafstra's first tag 10 years ago, and since then he's inserted implants into more than 700 people. He also partners with more than 100 body piercers nationwide, who have implanted thousands more. Grafstra's company, Dangerous Things, sells $40 do-it-yourself kits, which include the tag, syringe, and non-toxic materials.
The only problems that we've ever had is when somebody did it themselves and they put it in completely wrong. I mean, that's why we partner with piercers and people who are professionals. Yeah, this guy just like rammed it straight into the muscle, and that was a bad thing. But as far as like breaking or anything like that, anyone that places it correctly, which is almost everybody, except for a few exceptions, and do a good job of keeping it clean during the procedure, then there's no risk of infection.
And Emil isn't done with his products either. In fact, he's already installed his latest prototype. It's right here. You can see it. It's 5 times the length of the other devices, and it's called Yuki, which stands for You Are the Key. Yuki utilizes near-field communication to allow for one-time password generation, transferring contacts, Bitcoin payments, and downloading apps. Because the implants rely on power from the devices they communicate with, Grafstra is working on a non-toxic, flexible battery, even having gone so far as to insert a small solar panel into his arm temporarily for testing. It's all part of a movement known as biohacking.
It goes into the body and you forget about it. And it just does its job. It's like your kidneys are working right now really hard, but you don't think about them. They become so much a part of you that you consider yourself to be a new kind of augmented person.
Put this online.
Grafstra says he's had customers as young as 14 and as old as 65, and even installed one in his wife, which the couple affectionately calls an engagement chip.
Similar to the tech used to track your pets or your phone. Once implanted in your body, it could identify you as you pass through the airport, open the door to your home. It could even be used to buy groceries at the supermarket.
Well, a grocery store with no checkout lines. Now that sounds good. Amazon is making it a reality. The dot-com giant unveiled a new brick-and-mortar store where it sells grocery essentials and pre-made meals. Customers check in at the entrance of the store using the Amazon Go app. Shoppers grab whatever they want and just leave. Amazon says it tracks purchases using computer vision and advanced sensor technology.
I can't believe you just paid with this hand. Like, you just literally put your hand up and you're good to go. Like, that's crazy.
Identification in a digital world is crucial. From voting to healthcare to online biometrics, ensure the security of those transactions and ensure a fast, frictionless customer experience as well.
How did biometrics come about?
It really wasn't called biometrics, it was called fingerprinting, understanding that your fingerprints were a unique identifier to ensure that you were you. There's iris image, face, voice. Some people are working on gait biometrics in terms of how you walk.
Thank you. You have been identified.
Innovations about bringing people what they didn't know they want. Aviation and travel where there's all these bottlenecks and lines. Sports stadiums where you're seeing the same thing. Healthcare where somebody wants to know that you are you and all the things associated with your healthcare. When you're taking out a credit card and payment. Longer term, voting. It's all places where somebody wants to ensure your identity. In the next 5 to 10 years, we will look back on pictures of all of us carrying around driver's license and credit cards and keys and question why we did that, sort of like my kids now question the rotary phone.
More now of our special coverage here tonight, life in the U.S. in 10 years' time. By that time, there may be all kinds of new ways to safeguard and identify all those things that make each of us unique, our faces, even our fingerprints, even our eyes.
The technology is based on answering one simple question. Am I who I say I am?
Already, fingerprints and iris scans verify passenger identities at airports. Within 10 years, that technology may be even more widespread. And look for more complex facial recognition programs that scan a crowd of thousands looking for a single terrorist. Today's facial recognition software starts with the eyes. Then it maps out the contours of the face and compares that against a database of millions, a database that's growing by the day. What's next? At the University of Bath in England, researchers predict big changes for consumers.
I think it is possible to free us completely of our wallets and keys using biometric technology, if that's what people want in 10 years' time.
In fact, it's already here. The latest home security locks use fingerprints to control deadbolts. And at the Jewel Osco grocery store in Chicago, some customers pay using their fingerprints. No paper or plastic.
You don't really need anything other than your hand, and you already got that with you.
So will future department stores scan our irises, like in the movie Minority Report, then offer products catered to who we are?
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap.
Experts say that technology is here now.
And do you ever get tired of remembering all those passwords? Well, one high-tech office block in Sweden thinks it has the answer.
So this is how I unlock my phone nowadays. So usually people would type a PIN code, but I just touch this and the phone is unlocked.
It might look like magic, but he's implanted a microchip the size of a grain of rice into his hand. They can operate computers, photocopy machines and open doors with a wave. But many do have concerns over privacy, concerns those on the project told us are completely unfounded.
A man recently became the first person to get on a flight without a boarding pass. Instead, he used just a chip that was implanted in his hand. The Swedish man boarded the jet in Stockholm and posted the video on YouTube. The video also showed the process of implanting the chip, which is about the size of a grain of rice.
Verichip has been approved by the FDA as a Class II medical device in order to identify high-risk patients in an emergency situation. It's elective, it's voluntary, and it is certainly critical to the evolution of information technology in healthcare, which we all know is archaic, the way healthcare is done today in emergency rooms and physicians' offices.
Oh, go ahead.
You have one in your arm right now.
That's correct.
Where is it?
It's in the upper right arm. It's a simple injection process, just like getting a shot of penicillin.
Is it painful?
Not at all. They numb the area slightly. You don't feel it. They put a Band-Aid on it. Within 2 days, you don't even know it's there.
And can we, I don't know, did you get a good shot of this, Peter, the chip? I don't know how tight you can get on it, but these are small, and you've got a scanner with you right now.
That's correct.
Right?
This is the passive scanner that awakens our proprietary chip. It is not an active RFID tag that they have in retail environments where the technology is used for the benefit of the retailer. This is used for the benefit of a patient, a high-risk patient, being brought into an emergency room.
Okay, that's what you plan to use it for, but is there a way that it could ever be twisted or turned, or somebody else could get it's not the chip itself that turns it on, it's the reader.
That's right. The chip itself, Becky, as you know, has a unique 16-digit identifier. Even if I have one of these readers, even if I'm a bad guy that has one of these readers, and I scan your arm, all I'm going to get is a 16-digit identification number. The relevant information is stored on a database.
Revelation 13:16 reads, "And the second beast required all people, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead." That foreboding passage leads us to the small hamlet of Geneva, Switzerland, where the elite go about doing Lucifer's busy work. Geneva, Switzerland, home of the European headquarters of the United Nations and CERN. Geneva hosts the highest number of international organizations in the world, including the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, the World Health Organization, the International Labor Organization, the International Telecommunication Union, the World Intellectual Property Organization, and apart from the United Nations agencies, Geneva also hosts many intergovernmental organizations such as the World Trade Organization, the World Economic Forum, the International Organization for Migration, and the International Committee of the Red Cross. It is here in Geneva, Switzerland, where all of your personal data will be stored as you and your loved ones are chipped like animals, tracking your every movement, only to hit you with carbon taxation 24/7 under the incoming Agenda 2030 that is creeping its way into your community.
RFID has gained a strange and rapid popularity over the past decade. And now people are openly chipping themselves and posting videos online about their experiences. Other implantable devices are also being popularized by the mainstream media, now more so than ever. Why have these device implants become so popular? We've seen sources pushing this message for some time now. BuzzFeed, a YouTube channel that knowingly pushes New World Order propaganda, just featured a segment of a man who used an RFID implant to pay for all of his bills. Is it a fakery, or is there really something about this chip? The RFID chip is exceptionally dangerous, and there is a reason why. It hardwires you to the World Wide Web, the Matrix. RFID chips and other implants can interact with your body and collect data, and upload this data to the www that was birthed at CERN in 1989. The fact is that programmed microchips are so advanced in 2016, they can collect massive quantities of information on just about every aspect of your body, including tracking disease progression, tracking blood glucose levels, tracking hormones, etc. Early on, RFID implants were marketed to high-risk populations, such as the elderly, people with dementia, people with diabetes or epilepsy. This was done under a patent called VeriChip, which caused a firestorm of speculation that it could be an early test run for the Mark of the Beast.
And just how is the United Nations going to go about chipping 325 million red-blooded Americans? Well, in concert with the United Nations establishing a foothold in our local police forces, thanks to the United Nations and the Department of Justice's collusion of the Strong Cities Network, the CDC will begin arresting the unvaccinated and inevitably forcing these chips on the masses. John Rappaport writes, the CDC's imminent implementation of its new rules for controlling communicable diseases. I've covered these rules extensively. Here I'll sum them up. Rappaport continues, Americans traveling between states can be stopped, detained, and even quarantined if they seem to have indications of an illness that could impact public health. If this sounds vague, it is. The CDC has even coined a new absurd category, pre-communicable illness. It means that with few or no symptoms, but merely the probability of having contacted someone who had or could have had an illness, a traveler in America can be picked up and held against his will. The CDC asserts it has police powers to do this.
10,000 people have already been chipped, and the number is growing.
The elites have already chipped millions of people while they have slept, when they were put under, during surgical procedures and received medical device implants. Did you know that medical technology companies began to secretly implant chips into devices like hip implants, total knee replacements, titanium rods, medical mesh, pacemakers and defibrillators, prosthetics, and even breast implants now contain small microchips inside of them? There are millions of people on Earth who walk around with these implants. The conspiracy to place microchips into people began back in the first decade of this century. The problem is that everybody was focused on VeriChip. What they didn't realize is that chipping began before VeriChip was mass marketed, roughly around the years 2007 through 2008, the year of Obama's election. Millions of microchips are sitting inside of people's bodies as a part of a medical device.
Change happens. Change happens because the American people demand it.
Eventually what's happening is that we are being led bit by bit through, to use the Skinnerian term, from shaping, through the successive approximation to ultimately having within our bodies an RFID chip that will be implanted, that people will stand in line and in queues for to have, so that ultimately we will have in our bodies, because what we're doing right now, Lindsay, is we're slowly moving towards that. We went from the desktop to the laptop to the phone to the watch, and now we're having little tattoos, little biometrics, all of them leading to the ultimate goal, and that is an RFID, a radio frequency identification or similar chip, to be placed subcutaneously. And that chip, Lindsay, will have everything about you there is. Your bank account, your GPS location, and you will do it. You will get one. Because after all, it will also have the siren call of medical information. And then one day, God forbid, not you, one day when people are found guilty of, let's say, crimes, they're not going to be put into the Hoosgow, the Pokey. No. Their chip is going to be turned off and poof.
All right, this next story may sound like something out of, well, a Hollywood thriller. A Saudi inventor has created a killer microchip. It's designed to track terrorists and criminals and, well, you can think of somebody. Not only does it include a GPS device, it also has a lethal dose of cyanide, which can be activated at any time. You get my point? This is pretty macabre, pretty sinister and nefarious. How exactly would this work?
Well, there's a category of technology that involves GPS tracking systems being shrunk down to the size where you could actually implant it surgically. And we've seen a number of applications for this. This is without question the most sinister version of it that I've certainly heard of. You know, and the notion of tracking criminals is not new, but the notion of killing them remotely, I think, is a whole new thing.
They don't exist anymore. That's where all of this is going.
There will be a time when humanity will be forced to take a mark, and that mark will be on the right hand or the forehead. And people who do not take that mark, of course, will not be able to buy or sell.
The scripture she's referring to is Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 through 18.
Some people say RFID will be the mark of the beast because it can be a mark in your hand that you can transmit. If it isn't, and it may well not be, there may well be something that comes next beyond that to become, to fulfill that biblical prophecy. But every one of those steps was getting us closer to that end destination.
Once the CDC's full violation of the Constitution is underway, enforced by the Strong Cities Network, the United Nations Mark of the Beast system will be coming to a school and/or doctor's office near you, courtesy of the United Nations Agenda 2030.